Oh man, she did what? Why is the government always lying? That's not your fault. That was your mother's job. I know it sucks. It's hard, but it's fair. If we don't get our heads out of our collective asses, we're gonna be lost in the sauce. You knew he was sorry when you met him at DHS. Come on, baby girl. What's the solution? Look, I know I'm fucked up.
Do that thing. Welcome to the Angry Nerd Podcast. My name is Arshawn Wade, aka the Angry Nerd. Tonight's show is brought to you by some bad life choices and a few shattered dreams. The Angry Nerd Podcast is sponsored by money that my wife gives me from my SSI check, some chick named Joni, and proceeds from listeners like you. Now, if you want to be one of those listeners that supports this show and its production getting better and better every week, scurry on over to Cash App, and it is $ the Angry Nerd. Speaking of which, I want to give some shout outs to some of the people who have donated via Cash App. Brittany L, thank you. Curtis M, Haley T, and Jamie M. Thank you, thank you, thank you. The twos and fews that you guys see fit to give me are going to help me purchase a new tablet so that we can have tunes. That's why I don't have tunes. You guys don't ever get to hear them in Facebook land. But for my listeners on Podbean, Spotify, and YouTube, they're used to hearing my tunes in the background that were produced by my DJ Platinum Wax out of Southern Arkansas, Young Black Wise Guys Records. Check them out. Also, the graphics that you guys never get to see, but all of my listeners in YouTube land, Spotify, and Podbean get to see, were produced by my good buddy Dylan Brackley over at Savage Hippie. If you have any graphic needs, check him out. He's probably gonna be like, Arshawn, stop sending people over here, man. I just did you a favor one time. Quit sending people over here. Before we get into hot topics, I want to show my appreciation to my viewers, to my listeners, and I want you guys to know, those who are close to me know that I have been dabbling in the custom t-shirt business recently, and I have, for one special listener this week, and I will let you guys know who you are. I will inbox you and I will send you this custom shirt right here. For those of you on Spotify, Podbean, or YouTube, you can't see right now, but I'm holding up a red t-shirt with black and white letters that says Hustlenomics. And if you turn it around on the back, it says class is always in session. Has a little owl on there. It's kind of cool. It's kind of got the street feel and also got a little bit of nerd in there too. You know, I had to keep it nerd. Always got to keep it nerd. But yeah, I just want to show my appreciation to people who have been listening to me, to people who have been sharing my posts and everything like that. And I'm going to choose one special listener or viewer this week, and I'm going to inbox you or I'm going to email you, and I'm going to send you this shirt right here. And this was custom made by yours truly. Jumping right into hot topics. First and foremost, listen, I'm petty by nature, so I got to talk about this. August Alsina and Jada Pinkett. Let me say this. For those of you who don't know, August Alsina has gone on a couple of media outlets and he's spoken of a relationship that may or may not have happened, a romantic relationship that may or may not have happened between him and Jada Pinkett Smith with the blessing of Will Smith. Now, I know that it's been rumored over the years that Will and Jada have had some weird open relationship or something like that, but I will say this. They are people who stay out of the media in a negative way. So we really don't know for sure if that's the case. It's y'all speculation. So we don't know that they conduct themselves this way. But Will and Jada have both publicly denied this young man's claims that he had a relationship with Jada Pinkett and that he also had Will Smith's blessing. But for those of you who do not know, the Angry Nerd has got street bones in his body. You know what I'm saying? Like, my first thought was August Alsina, out of pocket, way out of pocket. On the kiss and tell side of the game, That's not cool, man. That's not cool. It's not okay. I really just didn't respect that play right there. I didn't respect the move. I'm like the rest of us. You know, I like a good juicy story. I like to know a little bit of dirt. You know what I mean? But it just seems like that was kind of scandalous. It's like if, and I'm saying if because I don't know. Sources say that Jada is denying it and so is Will. So I'm going to say if this young man's story is true, you are a low-down scoundrel. These people trusted you enough to bring you into not only their home, their lives, but their bedroom in one capacity or another, according to Mr. August Alsina. And I think that for you to betray that because it was over, I mean, all good things come to an end. I've been in love with Jada Pinkett Smith since 1994. What was it, Low Down Dirty Shame? Yes, Miss Peaches. I was terribly in love with Miss Peaches. And I was a tad bit salty when I found out that her and Will Smith hooked up. But he's Will Smith, you know what I mean? So you're living out a lot of young men's fantasies by allegedly having this romantic relationship going on with Miss Jada Pinkett Smith. And when it ended, like some things do, you have to understand that if Will and Jada are conducting themselves this way, that they're gonna remain. You know what I mean? They're the core relationship, and you were like a fleeting, fling. And you should have been okay with that, appreciated it, and then moved on. But you didn't. And it's just not a very manly or masculine thing. It's like when Superhead did her little tell-all book or whatever. It was like, okay, whatever. Because girls are catty like that, and they, talk about stuff like that. But there's supposed to be a code, a guy code, a G code. Now, behind closed doors with the crew, yeah, man, I got this, that, and the third going on with Jada. It's all good. Maybe. I can lightweight respect that, letting your inner circle know the guys that you can trust, the guys who aren't going to run and sell that to TMZ. I can understand that. But the way that he did it, to get out there and have a public interview and put these people's personal lives out there like that, I just don't respect it. I don't dig it. I don't think it was okay. Shout out to Jada and Will, and I hope they can put this behind them and they can continue living their life with their squeaky clean reputation and image the way that they always have. Moving right along. Young man Rich the Kid got robbed for the third time. Can somebody say security? I mean, at this point, I'm thinking it's one of his friends who's setting him up, because how do these robbers or flockers, I don't think in the Midwest or the Mid-South, flocking is a real big deal, but I know on the West Coast, flocking is a big deal, where these robbery crews will scout somebody, they'll sit on somebody, and they will watch them, and then they'll follow them home, and then they'll relieve them of their property, be it jewelry, money, or whatever. And, oh, excuse me. But Rich the Kid, this is the third situation where he's been robbed. And he's not a very big guy, so I don't understand why he wouldn't have security with him. But they say that, sources say that the robbers made away with upwards towards a couple $100,000 in cash and jewelry. And it wasn't like they just robbed him. They were at a kickback, and 6 armed men, masked men. Well, everybody's wearing a mask now. Hint, hint. Anyways, 6 armed, masked men entered the establishment and relieved Rich the Kid and the other party goers, the other attendants of the kickback, of their property. It was jewelry and money, like I said, upwards towards a couple $100,000. So shout out to them. I hope he can get some security. It seems like everybody has that ring, the security device where it shows who's coming up to your door or whatever. I hope they had something like that, or some sort of surveillance where they can get these guys off the streets, because that's pretty unfortunate. It's pretty unfortunate. Terry Crews talks black supremacy again. And I also seen where what's my man's name? D.L. Hughley. D.L. Hughley's talking a little bit of trash about him. Terry Crews, it's just not a good look. I won't say this word just to maintain the integrity of my podcast, but it starts with a C and it rhymes with spoon. I think that's the term that they use for people like Terry Crews. It rhymes with spoon. And I totally get it. While I won't necessarily say that I condone people using terms like that to describe a person because of their views and beliefs, but I will say that I understand that, because Terry Crews is really doing some tap dancing, and I just don't understand why. It's like at this time, it's not about race. We've already proved that, because we got black, brown, white standing for one cause. It's a civil unrest due to the injustice exacted upon society by overzealous cops. By cops who misuse their authority, and by cops that misuse their power as officers of the law. That's what it's about. And I don't know where he's getting this energy from that it's all about black, because even during the worst part of it, the rioting and the looting, it was everybody. We were all out there. Now, I am in no way, shape, form, or fashion implementing myself in a crime. I say we, speaking collectively as society. We were all out there. We were all out there standing in solidarity for justice, for some sort of a recompense, some sort of reckoning, you know, for the drama that the police have been putting in our communities. So I don't know where Terry Crews is getting this motivation from to feel the need to go and, you know, make this a black issue. Like he's saying, he doesn't want, I talked about it last week, he doesn't want Black Lives Matter to morph into black supremacy, meaning Black Lives Better. And I'm like, that's not the energy. And I don't know anybody who's acting like that or who's carrying it like that. I don't know anybody who's doing that. So I don't know where Terry Crews is getting this from. I hope he's not having one of those Kanye West breakdowns to where he's like, you know, just saying crazy stuff. Anyway, shout out to Terry Crews, and if he is having some mental health issues, I hope he gets some help, because I don't understand where he's coming from with this bullcrap. Anyway, there's a video making its rounds on social media that shows a white lady who potentially bumped a young black lady coming out of a store as they passed. And in the video, I see, you know, a black lady and her daughter like yelling and telling this white lady, "Hey, you bumped into me," and you know, it's just a terrible, terrible situation. It seems like it got really bad really fast, and ultimately, the white lady, who appeared to be pregnant, she pulled a gun on these two black ladies, and she told them to back the F up. And this is after there was a bunch of verbiage exchanged, and you know, they accused her husband of trying to hit her. But from my vantage point, it appeared that the lady jumped behind the man's vehicle while he was backing out. That's how it appeared to me. And it just seems like the whole situation was foul. And that's what prompted tonight's topic. Tonight's topic is conflict resolution skills. So many people lack common conflict resolution skills. And most of these people appear to come from the low-income communities, be it an urban setting or the trailer park or the ghetto or the hood, whatever labels you want to put on it. It appears that a lot of our brothers and sisters from the low-income communities lack the skills to diffuse a situation like this. It just seems like there were so many opportunities for somebody to squash this issue, for somebody to say, hey, let's calm down, let's take a step back. And because of that, I have put together a little bit of information, and I want to cite my sources. I told my friends that I was going to get better at citing my sources, because I didn't want anybody to think that I was plagiarizing this information and passing it off as my own. But the need for conflict resolution skills in low-income and urban communities. Let me first say that I got this information from, oh shoot, where's the name of the website? Oh, this information was gathered from fingerprintforsuccess.com. That's where I got this information from. Not the definition. First of all, let's define what conflict is. Conflict, as defined by Webster, is a serious disagreement or argument, typically a protracted one, meaning one that's gone on for some time. The definition of the word resolution is the act of solving a problem, dispute, or contentious matter. Excuse me. So conflict resolution, if I'm allowed a little bit of poetic license, is setting aside something trivial or even something serious for the greater good. Let's think about it. This lady long before this lady pulled the gun out, there were things that could have been done to avoid this situation, to diffuse this situation. The information that I want to bring to you tonight is I want to talk to you about 5 different tactics that we have to consider whenever we are talking about conflict resolution. But first, let me give you some facts. The nerd loves his facts. 85% of Americans deal with disputes on one level or another. 29% come face to face with conflicts almost constantly. Okay, so the 5 elements that we have to consider when resolving conflict go as follows. Number 1, communication. Number 2, emotional intelligence. Number 3, stress management. Number 4, empathy. Number 5, negotiation. Now, let me define these a little bit and then I'll expound on them. Communication. Communication is broken down into 2 categories: verbal communication and nonverbal communication. Verbal communication meaning focuses on spoken words, choice of words, what type of words that you use. And then nonverbal focuses on things like body language, gesture, tone of voice, facial expressions, eye contact. See, some of us understand that in our romantic relationships, we'll hear, especially the guys, we'll hear, well, it wasn't what you said, it was how you said it. You know, we hear things like that like all the time. And oftentimes we do not take heed of it, but it's very, very important. It's very important because if I say, I love you, you know, doesn't really seem like love, you know what I mean? Versus, hey, I love you. You can be saying, it's not what's being said as much as how it's being said, how it's being delivered, the voice inflection. I'm super guilty of it. Like, I understand the way that I say things sometimes sounds kind of assholey, you know? So I try to say, I always try to preface things like I know how things sound when they come out of my mouth, but these are my intentions. You know, because I know that something that I say, the way that I say it, can be misconstrued and it can leave people feeling miffed. And I know because I've been in this situation time and time again, and I've heard these things time and time again, so I had to take heed to them. And that's my attempt at making sure that my message or making sure that my intentions are known. So let's look at the next element, which is emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence is the ability to understand your and others' feelings and respond in a proactive, non-reactive way. Frequently, people's emotions may influence their response or interpretation of a situation. For example, if you're already not having a great day and you read a text message, the tone of that text message is going to be peppered by your emotions, by the mood that you're in. And I've been a victim of this, not having the greatest day, and my wife will text back, and I'll be like, why you say it all like that? Why you got attitude? She's like, nah, it wasn't like that. You know, if there was an LOL on there or a smiley emoji, I would, if I'm already having a not okay day, I automatically receive it as negative. So that emotional intelligence is very important. For instance, the situation with the young ladies where she pulled the gun on the young lady, there was zero emotional intelligence there because nobody stopped and said, hey, calm down. Emotions are high right now. You feel very disrespected and you're feeling afraid. Let's stop. Let's take a step back. Let's take a breather. Nobody exercised emotional intelligence in that situation. Because had someone exercised the tiniest bit of emotional intelligence in that situation, that young lady wouldn't have gone to jail, and her husband would be enjoying their lives right now instead of worried about court cases and court dates and lawyer fees. Moving right along. The next element is stress management. Stress management ties in with emotional intelligence. Be aware of the stress you're feeling first before managing it. It's essential to practice managing the stress you feel because stress can impair logical thinking. Stress is one of those deals that we talk about in recovery. Recovering addicts have to identify and become aware of their stressors. And I think that that's information that every man, woman, and girl can benefit from. Knowing what things cause you stress and then learning how to manage those things. There were so many stressors in that video for any normal person. For me, a stressor is someone talking really loud and angry, using violent language. Some people think that's strange. Some people think that just because you're a fighter, you're supposed to be okay in those situations. You're not. I'm not. I don't like talking crazy and people screaming at me and raising their voice at me. I don't like being in situations like that. And the fastest way for me to check out is for you to come talking crazy and talking loud and not allowing me to get a word in, because I don't think that the young lady who would ultimately end up pulling the gun on the other girls, I don't think that she had the opportunity to apologize, because the other two ladies just seemed to go boom, 0 to 100 right away. And so I watched the video and it was 5 or 6 minutes when she watched the entire video. And I didn't see where she had the opportunity to apologize if she did in fact bump her. Because the other ladies, it was just one thing after another. It was a barrage. It was one girl would go and then the other girl would go and then the other, and they just went back and forth with this barrage of verbal attacks. And I can understand, I'm not justifying anyone's actions here. What I'm saying is I can understand feeling overwhelmed. I can understand feeling afraid. I can understand feeling anxious. So a little bit of stress management, learning how to manage these stressors. Personally, I take a step back and I take a breath, and this may not be the best way to handle it, but when I'm in those situations, I'll be honest with you guys. I always rest on the fact, hey, if this situation goes as bad as it can go, they can't whoop my ass. And that may be a petty way of looking at it, but that is something in those bad situations like that gives me peace. That helps me bring my stress down, because I know that if this situation goes as bad as it can, which meaning becoming physical, I can protect myself. I can defend myself. So once I take that fear away, I'm able to kind of deal a little bit better. Now, I don't know what that means for other people who aren't fighters and who don't feel confident that they can defend themselves if a situation turned physical. That I don't know. But I will say this. It's worth looking into. We live in the information age, and it is 100% worth looking into. The fourth element is empathy. And this is a funny word to me because it sounds so much like the word sympathy. But they are very different words with very different meanings. Empathy is defined here as having a non-judgmental attitude and genuinely trying to understand what others are going through. This is something that I've been practicing mostly because I have like the worst road rage ever. Like I have like horrible road rage. Like not like I'm gonna hurt somebody or nothing, but I'm that dude who's like driving, and if you're slow in front, I'm cursing. If I get up past you, I'm gonna give you the finger and keep riding. Like I'm that dude. And I recognize that I don't want to be that guy. I don't want to be that guy. So I've started exercising empathy. And this isn't no, hey, pat Arshawn on the back kind of situation. I'm just sharing with you that it has helped me practicing a little empathy. And I will say things to myself like, hey, you don't know what they're going through. Maybe they've been in a wreck before and now they're being extra cautious. Or maybe their car isn't in that great a shape and they can't go any faster than that. Well, maybe they're old. They got tinted windows. You don't know. This could be somebody's grandma. This could be Gam Gam, and you're getting ready to ride up past her and give her the finger. Man, how would you feel if somebody gave your Gam Gam the finger? And when I run myself through that conversation, by the time I get done, having this conversation in my head, I've already gone past them, and I've already calmed down, and I've already moved on. And exercising a little empathy not only helps you, but it helps the other person too. Because in my case, with road rage, now they're not sitting there afraid because some young black dude threw the middle finger out the car at them or street tires going past them. No. So it has significantly helped me in my personal life with my road rage, and probably the drivers of Little Rock as well. So that's just an example that I wanted to use. You have to make these things fit you. You have to make these things yours. You have to fit, because your life isn't my life. The things that make me tick aren't going to make you tick. You have to figure out a way. What is your thing that you need to work on? How can you exercise empathy in your daily walk so that you can negate horrible situations and interactions like these ladies had with the gun being pulled out? Now, after I get done with this last point, I am going to exercise my opinions about what happened in that video. The fifth and final element is negotiate. Now, this is where you have to tie in all the other four elements: communication, emotional intelligence, stress management, and empathy. Once we get here to negotiating, this is where it gets a little funky sometimes. So you want to be clear, concise, and specific about whatever it is that offended you or whatever it is that went on. And this isn't, oh, how many of us are experts at this right here? Well, I'm sorry you feel like that. Out of pocket. Way out of pocket. That's not the right way to be about it. A better way of looking at it is, I understand how you feel, and I'm sorry that I did something to make you feel that way. I want to work on it. I want to fix it. What can I do? What can I change to make you feel differently? What can I do to not disrespect you like that again? I apologize. I didn't mean to do that. But let me tell you, but I said negotiate. So that's you owning your crap on your side, and the other person has to reciprocate. So don't rant. Whatever you do, don't rant. Don't go on a tangent. Like I said earlier, be clear, be concise. Express your feelings in words, not actions. Okay? Let's make sure that we're not doing that. Some of us have this real bad, and whoop-de-whoop-de-woo, hands flailing in the air, being very animated. Some of us do that in confrontation. This is conflict resolution we're talking about. So the last thing that we want to do is make somebody feel threatened. We don't want to make anyone feel uneasy. We're already in an uncomfortable situation because we have conflict. So the first thing that I want to do is disarm you by making you feel comfortable. Hey, I'm sorry. Let's calm down. Let's calm down. Let's figure out what we can do to work this thing out, okay? I'm sorry because I had no intentions of doing anything to harm you. I had no intentions of offending you. Let's figure this out. Somebody, I know it's like one of those things that your dad or your mom teaches you when you're a kid, but someone has to be the bigger person. Someone has to exercise some of these elements, or we'll find ourselves in a situation where we're in a parking lot and somebody's pulling a gun on us. Also, use verbal affirmations to work your way through conflict. These are words like, I understand, I see, sure, so on. You want to make people know that you're not sitting there listening to respond, but you actually give a crap about what they're saying. You want people to know that you're not being dismissive during this conflict resolution. You want to make sure that people don't feel miffed. They don't feel like you don't care. You know what I mean? You want to make sure that people leave away from this thing knowing that it was resolved, that it was put to bed. And you can't do that. Here's something that a therapist friend of mine told me. In an argument, in a conflict, Arshawn, if it feels good, don't say it. And I always felt like that was the most ironclad information that I ever received about having an argument or a conflict. If it feels good, don't say it. Because usually it is fuel on the fire. It's not going to be good. So, it's also important, this is the last key on negotiating. It's also important to wait your turn. Don't go on babbling. Give the other person time to share their opinion. And don't go into an interaction with the intention of winning the argument. Make sure that you don't have the intentions of winning the argument. That's not what it's about. What it's about is resolving the situation so that both parties walk away from it feeling as though they've accomplished something. They had a disagreement, a dispute, or whatever it may have been, and they walked away from it, one, most importantly, with their lives, two, with their dignity, and three, without any ill will. Because let's face it, as human beings, conflicts arise. Stuff happens. People get bumped coming out of department stores. Now, after all that being said, I hope somebody got something out of that. Now, here's my opinion about that video. And I think this is the part of the show where I lose listeners and I lose friends probably. Sorry. I don't think that the lady who pulled the gun was in the wrong. I told some personal friends of mine, I said, if that was my wife, I would have told, hey, I got your bond money. You know what I mean? Because from what I saw, this is my breakdown of the video. Apparently, the video takes place after the alleged bump. And the two black ladies are going off. You bumped into me. How could you disrespect my daughter like that? She's 15 years old. Blase, blase. They're going back and forth. And the white lady, the first thing that I noticed as a man was that she stepped back and she put her hand on her stomach, and my initial thought was, oh wow, she's pregnant. You know, and she was trying to, say something, but they were just, back and forth, back and forth. There was never a chance to get a word in. They just kept berating this lady, and they had blocked her vehicle. Her and her husband couldn't get to their car. And then finally, somehow or another, they were able to wiggle past them and get in the car. And they're screaming, you're just racist, you're a racist. And she's like, not everybody's racist. You know what I mean? This has nothing to do with race, And I can only imagine how she felt. She's like, how did an accidental bump turn into a race riot? Like right here in front of the department store. And the guy, her husband goes to back out. And I see the lady from my vantage point. It looks like she jumped behind him trying to stop him because they were calling the cops. I think this was a reverse Karen gone bad is what I think it is. That's my opinion. This was a reverse Karen and it backfired. It went totally bad. Now, where I say I agree with the way that the young lady jumped out with the gun, I agree in this respect. Whenever her husband was backing out and the lady jumped behind the vehicle, she started hitting and kicking the vehicle. Well, at that point that you assaulted this lady's car, I feel I would have felt like, you know, there was, now mind you, in the video, it wasn't just the lady and her daughter. There were like 2 or 3 other people around as well. So I can imagine feeling like, oh, you know, now people are hitting on my car and banging on my car. Oh, it's about to go down. And she jumped out with the blower. And I'm not entirely mad at her for that. There are people who saying, oh, she committed a crime. Oh, she was wrong. It didn't have to go that far. Well, you know, if all the young girl got was bumped, it didn't have to go that far to where you followed this lady to her car and you were cursing her and talking crazy and calling her out of her name. At what point do you say, you know, and initially what I read later on was that the young lady, before the white girl could say, excuse me, the young lady says, excuse you. You know, now I would have felt some kind of way too. Before I could even apologize, you disrespect me like that. I get it. I get it. I totally understand. And I probably wouldn't apologize either once you got funky with me like that. The only thing that makes this situation sketchy is that there's a white girl and a black girl. I think that if this situation had been 2 white ladies or 2 black ladies, I don't think it would have been blown out of proportion the way it has been. That's my personal opinion. But I just didn't see anything where it was about race. And I really think that some people pull the race card and it's like, leave the race card at home every now and again. But some people, you know, it's like they never leave home without it. Race card. Whenever you want to turn a simple, tiny situation into a whole movement, except none less, race card. You know, and I just really think that it's horrible. I don't think that that's okay. And I felt like, you know, the lady just started screaming, you're a racist, you're a racist. And I couldn't understand what she did that was racist. Now, mind you, this is coming from the same guy who was chiding Terry Crews for his spooning. So it's not like I'm just trying, oh, the white man ain't never did nothing wrong. No, it's not that energy. But right is right and wrong is wrong. And I think that if the shoe was on the other foot and that was my wife, I would have told Dominique, hey, knock both of them off. You know, and I'm just being honest. You know, there's no sense in me sugarcoating it. If I was in that situation and that was my wife who was pregnant getting in the car after this situation and she jumped out and felt like she needed to pull her gun to protect us or to back these people up away from us, I would have told her to go ahead and lay them down. And that's my personal opinion. And that may be wrong. I accept that. I can stand on it. But I personally believe that she didn't do anything wrong. And I also feel like she was arrested because a lot of police forces around the country are feeling a lot of pressure right now when it comes down to the color lines. And they shouldn't. See, because it's that stuff right there that makes me feel like they're not the right people for the job. They're not the right people for the job. That's what I think. That's what I believe. They're not the right people for the job. Because right or wrong, I mean, right is right and wrong is wrong. And I don't care what the optics are. If it was the right thing, then they shouldn't have arrested her. I think that she had reason to pull her gun. I think that she was well within her legal rights to pull her gun. And I think that based on the situation, she was justified in pulling her gun. And she gave warning. Back up. Back up. Back the F up. You know, I think it would have been a different situation if she had pulled the trigger. But she pulled the gun. She got them off of her and she got in her car and she left. Now, if they had advanced on her and she shot them, I still think that would have been justified. Because just because I have a certain stance, just because I feel like society has gone in a really Rudy Poo direction and we need a societal psychic shift. I get that, but I'm not blinded by that to where I can't see that there are gray areas. You know what I mean? There are gray. Everything isn't black and white. There's a whole lot of gray. There's a whole lot of gray. And I just think that some people are taking advantage of the movement and they're bastardizing the movement. And if you ask me, I think people like this are paid to stage bogus situations and demonstrations like this to railroad and derail the movement. That's what I think. Just like they have people who were staged at the protest to start the looting, or people who are agents to start the riots, I think the same thing about these people. I think that they're paid to videotape these situations and have Black Lives Matter movement come over here and waste energy and resources on a situation that had nothing to do with black and white. And then that will diminish the movement. That will take validity away from the movement. I think that's what these situations are for. And we have to be intelligent enough to figure out, hey, that doesn't have nothing to do with black and white. That's just two people who had a disagreement. And I don't think that we should be running over there to champion this cause, because that is, for one, it's fruitless, and two, it's really, really petty. It's really, really petty. I think that I've had a pregnant wife. My ex-wife was pregnant. My current wife has had a child. They don't really know their girth. They don't really have good balance. And I just don't think that the situation should have gotten out of hand like this. I just don't think that should have happened. And I think for the most part, it's because people who live in the low-income communities don't have conflict resolution skills. You don't see a lot of situations like this happen in the more affluent parts of town. You know what I mean? It's very rare that you hear about these situations happening where the Richie Poos live. And the reason why is because, they have time to learn things like this in school. Those of us who grew up in urban communities, low-income communities, it was kind of like the law of the jungle a little bit, strong survive and everything like that. So a lot of us didn't learn how to resolve conflict. A lot of us learned how to resolve conflict with our knuckles. A lot of us learned how to resolve conflict with a gun. There are a lot of us in the low-income communities who have learned how to resolve conflict with violence. And I've said this time and time again to people who listen to me talk. The day of the cowboy is over. You can't settle a disagreement with a slap across the beard and a duel. It doesn't happen like that anymore. So what we have to do is we have to become more socially and emotionally intelligent. And we have to learn how to diffuse situations like this before they turn into people losing their freedom and people losing their rights. So that's the information I want to leave you guys with. And before I get out of here, I want to go to the chat. I think all my listeners on Podbean, Spotify, and YouTube know that when I'm talking about the chat, I'm talking to my brothers and sisters in Facebook land, because I broadcast live from Facebook whenever I do these shows. So let me scroll up just a little bit and see if I can find some. Dylan Brackley, hey, it's nothing, man. I love you guys. You guys, I feel like an honorary member of Savage Hippie. Like, like that dude that just hangs out. It's like, he's your friend. No, he's your friend. Whose friend is this guy? No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, and it ain't for clout, because everybody used to love Terry. Used to. That's right, Aaron Vincent, man. I don't know what Terry Crews' whole get down is. I don't know. I don't think that he's lost anything. I will say that last movie that he just did, was it John Henry? Sucked. And I couldn't understand like what the purpose of the movie was. It was garbage. And Ludacris with the big, if you haven't seen it, check it out. It's worth watching. It's one of those things that's so horrible, it's worth watching. You know, it was terrible. Ludacris was in it and he had a big iron jaw. I don't know. It was very disturbing. I just couldn't figure it out. I was angry that I watched it, but I want other people to watch it so we can talk about how terrible it is. So maybe that's what his motivation is. He did that real crappy movie and he's like, let me figure out a way to tap dance my way back into mainstream society because I just got swept off the stage by Sandman at the Apollo for my performance in this crappy movie, John Henry. And the story of John Henry is actually really good. I remember reading it when I was a kid, but he did that story no justice whatsoever. Dylan Brackley said, bro, that shirt is money as F. Thank you. I really appreciate that, man. I'm actually very proud of that design. I'm very proud of the work that I've been putting in designing. And I haven't drawn in like years, and I haven't done any type of designing or nothing like that in years. So I was actually pretty scared. I was like, oh, you know what? Screw it. I'm going to do it. I'm going to put it out there. People mess with it, they mess with it, they don't. You know, it's whatever. But my whole thing about everything that I do in my life is I don't want to wake up one day and be 80 years old and say, what if? You know, what I want to do is I want to say, what if today? Well, what if somebody really likes this shirt and people start buying it? What if this is the next big fashion thing, you know? So what if it's something bigger than I can imagine right now? What if? So I'm going to take a shot, and I really appreciate people like you, Dylan, and Tim, who inspire me and who always have something positive to say. So I really do thank you. I appreciate you guys and your energy. Okay, I got one more right here. How do we make this option seem viable? How do you make people understand that it is all right without appreciating ego and its grip on society? I will tell you, as someone who practiced Buddhism for a number of years, Dylan, the ego is a very powerful and tricky thing, man. The ego is probably the cause of 95% of the drama that goes on in this country. I would go as far as to say that the ego is probably 95% responsible for most of the drama in the world, because people can't put their egos aside. So I want to leave you guys with that. Figure out what your triggers are, figure out what your stressors are, figure out a way to resolve conflict. I want to share this story before I get out of here. I won't say his name, but a friend of mine that I admire a whole lot, and I root for him. I root for him a great deal, but he was shot some days ago. I don't know when exactly it happened. I just heard about it. You know, he lives in another city, and I heard about it, and I'm like, wow. To get shot at our age, we survived the streets, we survived the drugs, we survived prison, and to be our age in a situation where you get shot, my heart was broken because I didn't know if, you know, his wounds were fatal. I just didn't know what they were. And like I said, I really root for him because I think he's a superstar. I don't think it, I believe it. I know he is. Just being around him and knowing his personality and knowing, you know, he's one of those people who's like that blue light that attracts the mosquitoes, you know, like he just like kind of draws you in. He's one of those people, just very charismatic, very cool, decent guy. And in a situation that really, from what I heard, was nothing. Nothing. And at the end of it, he wound up with a bullet inside his body. And I can't understand that. But if we start exercising conflict resolution, we can avoid situations that wind us up in the ER or in jail or dead. I lost a friend about a week or two ago. And I think about stuff like that. Life is too short to be out here killing each other or pulling guns on each other or ending someone's life, over something that was 100% avoidable. So I want to leave you guys with this. Let's work on being better people. I know the challenge of growing up in the low-income communities. I know the challenge of growing up in the hood or growing up in the trailer park or growing up in the projects. I know what that challenge is like, but it is totally worth it to exercise a little bit of this stuff, to learn how to use this stuff. You can read the directions on the back of a box of cake, but that really don't tell you how to cook a cake. Just tells you what you need, tells you how to mix it, but only that experience from using these ingredients and putting these ingredients together and putting them enough, that's how you learn how to cook a cake. And you can read all the books on conflict resolution that you want until you learn how to use these skills. And you do that by practicing them day in, day out. Practice these skills every single day, because I really don't want to open up the paper and see any more friends in the funny papers. My name's Arshawn Wade, aka The Angry Nerd. Don't forget, check your inbox, because one lucky listener out there in Facebook is going to win this shirt. Hustlenomics. It's the brand. Class is always in session. My name's Arshawn Wade, aka The Angry Nerd. I'm out. Peace.